Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I've been doing a little bit of both today. It was such a beautiful day. We are in the midst of a heat wave in May. If you never again met me before, I'm Cindy and I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And we do live in the extremes. We have very hot summers and we have very cold winters, but it's only May and we're already hitting the 30s, right? This is crazy. And if you're still in the Fahrenheit, right? That's almost 100 degrees outside, right? In northern, well, I guess it's the northern part of North America. And if you actually want to get specific, we are dab center of Canada. It's really neat that we have these little, I don't know, little claim to fames that every place in this world has something beautiful and unique about it. When you go places, you get postcards and you get little souvenirs. You have baseball teams and hockey teams. And this is where our pride lays. This is our community. And lots of us think that, that we don't belong to any community, but just in the city, the village, the town that you live in, the street that you live on, right? That's a part of a community, right? When you go to the grocery store and they go, "Hey, Joe," right? This is community. And lots of times we think that we're in this alone. And in fact, that is so far from the truth. I live here in Manitoba in the wintertime. If you're out on the highway and you run out of gas or something happens with the engine of the car, you pull over to the side of the road, you lift the hood of your car, and I swear within 30 seconds, you probably have a dozen cars that have stopped to give you a hand. That's community, right? Sometimes we don't look past, right, what we see in our everyday, day to day, right? Lots of us, we spend more time at work than we do at home. And so you have to consider the people you work with as part of your community. So we're going to kind of go in the route of work today. I was going to touch on it yesterday, but I thought if I gave it a little bit more time, that maybe, right, it would give a little bit of food for thought. Because even though I kind of dabbled in this my entire life, I never considered it as an option. I never thought I was smart enough. Truly, I didn't think I was brave enough or courageous enough. I didn't believe that I could accumulate a little bit of resources to get the ball rolling. And, I have had jobs that have paid very, very well. So well that I probably could have put a nice little chunk together for something, whether it was to start my own business, to buy a house, to even buy a new car. I didn't get my first vehicle, I think, until I must have been almost 40 years old. And, I was the queen of beaters in that. And, I was perfectly content in that because right? I wasn't doing the car payments, and I struggled lots in payments. I struggled lots in payments with credit cards, keeping up with the rent, paying my bills, uh, just in budgeting in general. And, for the most part, I just kind of blame it on my upbringing that these were lessons that I never received. And in truth, I had to take responsibility for that because it was in my choices to kind of ration the bill money, right? Spread it out a little bit, sprinkle it around, right? Never paying anything off completely, letting my credit cards ride and just paying the minimum payments on my credit cards, never buckling down and really applying myself to putting money away. For those of you who've been with me for any length of time, you know that I was a compulsive gambler. In my choice of poisons, in my choice of coping mechanisms in my life that I didn't even know were coping mechanisms. I just thought, I was a VLT addict. It was quite clear the way I was pouring money into those machines. And if you don't know what a VLT addict is, it's a video lottery terminal addict. I played slot machines. Um, my dad loved gambling. That's not an excuse. But I think in picking my poison, I took that into consideration, because I loved my dad. So, of course, I want to have some of those same problems. If I'm going to have problems, I'm going to have those same problems as my dad did. And gambling was one of them. And, I really struggled with that. And it really hurt my marriage, if not destroyed it, but just because it took me away from responsibilities and accountabilities, and it just took me off to la la land where I didn't have to face anything. And yet I did, right? I shuffled my bills around. I struggled. I lied to my husband as to where the money was, right? I was making good money. I was making thousands of dollars a week in all honesty in waitressing, right? And I was good at it, and it was a fun job, and I screwed that job over too, as I did so many other jobs. And we're going to get into this. I got notes here. We'll get to, right, that little cheat sheet to keep me on track, to keep me on the main branch. But I just want people to know how desperate it was for me to, I don't know, I think it was to escape what I didn't want to face. And that was, in all honesty, right? Just leave me alone, just me and that machine. And I would have to say, very self destructive in that, because I knew exactly what I was doing, but I felt I didn't have any control in that. And it spiraled, and it was my greatest need was to get off the gambling. Like, I prayed for that, right? And it was gifted to me. And I say gifted to me because I didn't do it all by myself. I needed help, but the universe somehow, right, made that happen for me. It was COVID, right? The world got shut down, lockdown. By then, I had already lost my credit card, so I wasn't playing online at all. So when the world got shut down with COVID, I kind of got shut down in the gambling, and it was enough because I really wanted it, right? It had destroyed and was destroying my life. I didn't care about anything anymore because I just felt so And I hate to do that because, right, this was a signal we gave to a lot of the kids in school. And I didn't like it when it was done to me. And here I am. But I just, right, but we all know this signal. We all know this feeling within us. So it was just a good way, just so that you could have a really good idea of how low I really, really was. And at the same time, I was dealing with heartbreak and credit credit card collectors, and my marriage falling apart and moving back to a new life and entering in a new life because I had given up my civilian life for the military life because my husband was in the military. And right, again, when we talk about community and we talk about families, right, this was a family I was adopted into. I felt like I was just pulled into it, and it was some of the most amazing, beautiful time, right, in my life. But in that compulsion with the gambling, that being drawn into the military family, that I just gave up the civilian life. And when I say I gave up the civilian life, I gave up for the majority my civilian friends. So much so that when my husband got transferred to a new city, we just picked up and we started over. Change was nothing new to me. Hello, Eugene. I'm doing amazing tonight. Happy birthday, Eugene. 43 years old. I remember I remember 43 years old. I was just starting to come out of um, the breakup of my marriage around 43, right? I was in my late 30s when it broke apart. It took a while. It was a toughie for me. But crying, talking, time, right? That saying, time heals all wounds. At least, it becomes a little bit more bearable, right? And I should have talked a little bit about that too, in when I was talking about guilt and shame yesterday, but that was yesterday. And today we are talking about those jobs. And it kind of goes into that because when my marriage fell apart, I didn't care, right? I really didn't care. Oh, no, happy birthday. I know a couple of people who had birthdays today, Eugene. Yeah, so that's amazing. I'm so glad that you actually mentioned it. Lots of times, I'm not really good at keeping note of dates and stuff. And a lot of the people on my chatters live on Sunday nights, right, they'll tell me after the fact, and then, right, I have to say a happy belated birthday. But it is in the repetitiveness of them saying it's my birthday today. So let's see, Eugene, if next year, end of May, that if I can remember on my own to say happy birthday. Wouldn't that be amazing if I remembered, right? And that would be amazing because, like I said, I am terrible with dates. But as we get to know each other, right? As I get to recognize all my regulars and stuff, and I try, but it for me it takes a while. Some people are just like photographic memory, and they have that too in the visual and in the hearing and in the memory part that it just imprints so well. Um, I'm not so much that way. I tend to concentrate or pay attention to the negative, and that is in the hypervigilance. I'm a very optimistic, positive person, but it only comes from me scanning my surroundings, and if I see that something is off, right, you move out of those surroundings and you move into something else, right? So it's not like it brings me down or makes me depressed. But what did make me depressed was when my marriage fell apart and I couldn't hold jobs anymore. I just couldn't. Right, growing up, I was a hard worker. I would stay at my jobs for, oh my goodness, a deck. I had the bartending waitressing job at that one hotel. I think it was like 12 or 13 years I worked there, right? But the thing was, I stayed in a lot of these jobs. Not that job. That job was an amazing job. I loved that job. I never got bored ever working there. But after my marriage fell apart, I went back to that job. I didn't make it more than a few months, right? And I was gone. And then after that, it was just like one job after another. And, a lot of those jobs I would hold on to, right? And, they say it's in the attitude. And you say, I don't have attitude. But when you go through those bad experiences, those sad experiences, those traumatic experiences, and those experiences that aren't even your experiences, but because you were hanging out with the people having those experiences, they became your experiences. That, right? People just were looking forward to me finding another job. It became very difficult, and I would hold people accountable, my jobs accountable, with Better Business Bureaus or head offices or corporate, and calling them and documenting them, and what a way for someone to live. That was all just negative. I was just holding on to a job where I didn't want to be, right? And they didn't want me to be there, but I held on to it because it was the roof over my head. Even as a young adult, right? Those regular 9 to 5s, or those, right? Those Monday to Fridays, that just was not my thing. I didn't feel like life was for working and grinding yourself to the bone. I thought life was supposed to be curious and exciting and social and interactive, with beautiful landscapes and lots of adventure. Right? And I still sort of kind of feel that way. I only have one life. So again, this could be, right, the topic we talked about yesterday about guilt and shame, because I could feel guilty in that. I could feel shame in that because everybody else is off 9 to 5, and there's Cindy. She just quits her job, right, with no real cush underneath her. Thank goodness for a little bit of savings. I thought I was saving for a new car. But whoever or whatever, right, decided to trick me and decided, and it wasn't a bad trick, because having this time off is exactly what I needed. It has been a very, very long time that I have not been going 100 miles an hour. And I think this is the message, and this is the the experience I'm supposed to be having as the spectator and as the student, to read into how much I really needed, right? To slow down, smell the roses, get into the summer. I'm doing this because they're tank tops, heat wave, summer in May. Absolutely amazing. Okay, so let's get into the notes, seeing what we're talking about jobs there. Boxcar Jerry. um, Entrepreneurs. I've been hanging with the entrepreneurs since, you know, since I woke up to some of these ideas. I'm not a religious person. I understand, right, that the way my life is being experienced, it is, right, it's something. And just like everybody else, I am bumbling along in that, right? But I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying learning and I'm enjoying, well, I have to say, I'm enjoying the little bit of dazzle and amaze. That's what it is because I don't know what's coming. So it's all wonder to me in the experience. And of course there's lots of scary and there's lots of unexpected, but I'm no stranger to change, right? So as a highly sensitive, as somebody who is hypervigilant and empathic and a little bit of that, right? Her own worst enemy sometimes when it comes to that defensiveness that we tend to have, right? Because we are sensitive. We constantly being betrayed or feel like we're being betrayed or we're being misled or people are talking about us or people don't like us or people trying to get rid of us and it's just right. Constant all the time. And this is why we go through jobs the way we do, why we have difficulties in holding on jobs. Well, one of the difficulties, right? The other one is we're grabbing jobs for the sake of grabbing a job. We're grabbing jobs to keep the roof over our head and not to find a little bit of happiness for ourselves. Yeah, payday, maybe we can go off and buy ourselves a new outfit, right? But to actually go to work and love your job, I have had I've had many jobs like that where I've actually loved my job. I've loved the money, I love the interactions with my customers, I love the speed, the faster, the better, right? And and yeah, but there was that phase, that I just did not want or care about holding on to my job. And I went through a lot of jobs, and that's what they were. They were jobs that I didn't want. Knew when I was taking the interview it was a job that I didn't want, but because I needed the roof over my head, I took it, and it always turned out the way I expected. Again, what you think about is realized, and I brought that misery into the job. Right? I brought that in. I put people in the position where they didn't want me around. I was always customer oriented. The customers loved me. The big bosses always loved me because I brought in money, right? But the people I worked with, right? Because I was always learning and I was always cross training that I knew everybody's positions so that when they had to lay off, right, when people had to go, uh, right, I'd probably be the last person they would let go because I could pretty much do everything. Or I would work myself in the ranks so that I wouldn't have those difficulties with other people because, right, I was dictating. I was calling the shots. I was leading the team. So I wanted to say, everything that I'm doing right now, it is in the pivots because it's not how I came in. I came in as an urban explorer, as a back road explorer, exploring more of the outside than I did of the inside. But as I started moving in the inside, right? And again, following the lessons and understanding that I really have to love what I do And I love this. I really do. And especially when I get those moments when I totally understand, totally understand the highly sensitives, the INFJs, the codependents, the empaths, right? That we truly need to be working for ourselves. It's why I climbed the ranks when I got into a job as fast as I could. So I wouldn't have that breathing on my neck. So I wouldn't have others criticizing me. And like I said, right, the only ones that would be higher than me would be the owners or the general managers. And they loved me, like I said, because I was responsible, accountable, and I brought in the money in the least amount of complaints because I was so customer focused. But I wasn't there. I was gonna say I wasn't there to be people's friends, but being the highly sensitives, being the empaths, and, right, all those other things that I said, depending on the labels. Labels suck, you guys. Labels confuse people because depending on your traditions, cultures, religions, political ideas, right, the terminology is going to be different for you, and there's so many labels that I could fit into, you know um, these problems that we tend to have when we grow up and get into the workforce. I believe empaths, highly sensitives, we should be working for ourselves. We should be our own bosses, or we should be the leaders in our teams, right? Only because, well, we have these difficulties, right? They're not special needs. You could look at them a little bit like handicaps, and that's okay. Everybody has handicaps, right? Mentally, emotionally, physically. Everybody has them, just some are more visible than others. And well, that's a story for another day. But as highly sensitives, you know, we make the best, uh, what is that, opportunity in this digital age, right? Because AI, the digital age, it's the way the world is going. And I was doing my income tax return, and I noticed there were a whole bunch of new categories in deductions that we could pull. And I'm just gonna clear this light screen here because it's reflecting in my face. Whoopsie. Um, I noticed there were a lot more deductions available for the entrepreneurs, right? There are bursaries, there are loans, there are all kinds of incentives for entrepreneurs. There are more boxes on those income tax forms in order to declare your income as entrepreneurs. So it's just not incentives, it's just not tax deductions, right? It's also a way to make sure that the entrepreneurs, right, are paying their fair share in the taxes. And it's so easy for entrepreneurs, right? Because for myself, reselling and doing Kijiji, right? Getting rid of my things, it's been getting me by, right? I am trying not to go back to working for the man, right? I'm trying to be a leader of a team or be my own boss in my own business. And a lot of what I'm doing is in that movement towards that. But I was going to say, the entrepreneurs are, right? They're already being recognized by the government as part of the future, the mainstay of income in a household, right? And this has been going on. People got locked down again during COVID. And, right, we got a little bit of a taste because we were scrambling. How do we put the roof over our heads? Right? I know, I get it. I came that close myself, right? But those highly sensitives, those ones who have taken those crappy jobs, right? Those ones who have been beaten down by narcissistic bosses, right? Or people who just do not have that consideration and sensitivity for people who have sensitivities, which was kind of like a little bit of a lesson for me in the past few months. But I tell you, I wrote it down here, right? The everyday Joe, right? The ones who are willing to do the time, right? Willing to put the energy, whatever resources they have, and just the pure grit, right? Has that I can do it mentality. And equally, they have a never give up attitude, right? And because of what they went through in all those jobs that they just had to, right? Just put up with, to just struggle, to just bear, right? That they were willing and they're expecting it's going to be a tough go of it. Those are the ones who are going to succeed in this digital age. The entrepreneurs. And, we deserve that piece of the pie, right? We've already gone through the worst of it in our lives. I find this to be exciting and challenging. And even though I don't know how it's going to play out, I just keep it the lessons, you guys. And I keep using those tools that I pick up along the way to help me make those baby steps that's going to get me to where I want to be. I have it all written down. I thought I did it. I get lessons all the time. Set your goals, write them down. And so I'm turning pages to get a free blank piece of spot there so I can doodle some more notes. And then I look down at what I've written and I'm going, oh my goodness, this is something that I did yesterday. Well, let's go over them then and make sure that these goals that I wrote down are still my dreams, my goals, my ambitions. And even though I don't know how my life is going to play out tomorrow, it could be totally 360 or 180, hopefully a 45-degree turn by my own choices. That would be perfect with me. But I read these goals and they're the same. They're the same goals I had 6 years ago when I pivoted this way, and they're the same today, and they haven't changed. They've only become more enhanced and more compounded in the experiences and in the evidence of my own effort, right? That I can do it. So, right, I know it is never too late. It really is. I'm 63 years old. If I can make this happen, oh my goodness, wouldn't that be evidence for everybody to get to work, wouldn't it? But even if it doesn't transpire in this lifetime for myself, I have gained so much in the experience of trying that that can't be taken away from me. So if I get nothing from it, I got everything from it. And that's the truth. That's the truth. Okay, you guys. That's my good chair. We'll be at it tomorrow. Let's see what Eugene has to say because he's yapping away. Uh, put on your high heel shoes and dress when you going live at night. No, you guys are lucky I'm not in my pajamas. I am who I am. You know what? They are the dress up days. They are. I am not labeled in my outfits. I love all sense of style, and it depends on the occasion. And today it was 30 degrees outside, right? I'm not having a dress up day at midnight, right? But thank you, right? You'll see me in a dress, not high heels, maybe some high heel boots, but not high heels. Those days are over. When I used to work in the bars and nightclubs, I only wore heels like this. I couldn't wear anything at all else, not out and about, nothing. But 2 months after, right, quitting that job, wearing flat shoes, I was in flat shoes forever, right? Yeah. As long as you keep going, I could have stayed in heels. I'd probably still be in the heels right now, right? But you need to keep in that habit of wearing them. Otherwise, yeah, your feet will go flat, right? Now I have to really take care of my arches now. I want to be that little old lady, 85 years old, on my mountain bike with my basket, right? Wheeling around the neighborhood. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah. Okay. Oh, no, I didn't think that you were, dear Eugene. No, don't even think that way. It's all good. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. You guys, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.